What is going on, y'all? Robert Sykes, KetoSavage.com, KetoBodybuilding.com, coming at you with another update for the building series. This is week 30, and I'm not really doing a reset at the moment. I'm kind of catching up for 2 weeks. I was out of town last week hunting elk in Colorado. My macros were a little different that week. We'll dive into it. But the whole goal for this reset period was to drop weight in preparation for that elk hunt. I didn't want to have to carry the extra weight through the mountains. I am certainly glad that I did cut that weight. I lost about 18 pounds over that span, so that felt good. I've been kind of leveling off at about 185 right now, and that's a pretty healthy building phase weight and composition for me. I'm probably around 15, 16% body fat. That's kind of, for me, if I'm between 175 and 185, that's kind of my sweet spot. I'm pretty freaking lean at 175. A little fluffier than I would ideally like to be at 185, but still totally reasonable. Anything beyond 185 at this amount of lean tissue is just getting kind of sloppy, so I'm glad that I cut down from the 200. So let me just kind of bring you up to speed. We'll jump into my computer right here. I've got my AI pulled up, and you can kind of see what my macros have been doing over this past few weeks. So fat was dropping throughout this reset period. Protein was increasing throughout the reset period. And then carbs have obviously stayed very low. However, these past 2 weeks while I was gone, I did have quite a bit more food because I wanted to make sure I was taking in enough energy to fuel the activities of the elk hunt. I was putting in several miles a day, climbing at elevation of 10,000 plus feet, all with a heavy load on my back, and it was very cold, so I wanted to have enough food coming in to fuel those activities. They were long days. Like I was waking up 3:30, and then going to bed at 2 a.m. in the morning after butchering an elk and processing it. So long days, needed to make sure I was getting enough food. And again, at that point, I was not really trying to cut weight further, so I had quite a few more calories. There was a couple days where it was around 4,000 calories, so much higher on the intake. But again, my weight has stayed pretty stable at the 185. The lowest I got was 182. The heaviest I got was 202. So for all intents and purposes, 20 pounds dropped in this reset period, but I've kind of leveled off now at the 185. You can kind of see my weight trend dropping here, and then again hitting 182 there at the lowest, and then kind of stabilizing here at 185. But my caloric intake for these past 2 weeks has averaged about 3,100, 3,200 calories. So that's pretty much my maintenance. Whatever body weight I kind of stabilize at in the context of a build, if I'm eating around 3,000 to 3,200 calories, my weight stays pretty stable at that composition and weight. If I'm jumping over to chronometer here, we'll just go into some of the trends, charts, and you can kind of see that reflected with these higher intake days as well. Again, pretty much showing the same thing as the AI with regards to my weight trend over time. Those days were higher on the calories, higher on the protein, quite a bit of protein. I was eating a lot of lean sources such as a lot of fish, a lot of salmon, a lot of shrimp, and then obviously once we got the elk down on the ground, I was eating quite a bit of elk, which is very lean, similar to venison. So very high protein relative to my normal intake, but it was all delicious and my body soaked it up. Elk is like the highest quality meat you can get. It's all wild, and they're eating all the natural vegetation there in the mountains of Colorado. So very tasty, very nutritious. As far as what I'm planning on doing going forward, now that I'm back in my routine, more or less, I still have some traveling coming up, but I'll be able to have access to a gym. I'm probably going to stabilize at this 185 for a bit, probably continue to eat around 3,000 to 3,200 calories on average. There may be some high days, maybe some low days, but that'll probably be the average. And just focus on training heavy, training hard, building more lean tissue. I may try and push it down to about 175, maybe at the beginning of the year, kind of jump in on all those New Year's resolutioners, but I'm not really trying to do a cut right now. But I wouldn't be opposed to getting as low as 175 and then just kind of getting more aggressive with the calories, maybe pushing it as high as 4,000 calories on average once I hit that 175 mark to see what my body responds to at that intake, at that weight. But for all intents and purposes, pretty much the remainder of the year is going to be spent hovering around 185, focusing on building as much lean tissue as possible, being very progressive with my overload training, and just really focusing on lifting hard, lifting heavy, and getting ample sleep. Lots of variables at play with the business right now. We got a lot of launches coming up, a lot of new flavors with Keto Brick, so that is all very stressful. I still have several more hunting trips in the queue as well, so I will have a little bit of a dysregular schedule in the coming weeks as I'm gone hunting, but for the most part, I should be able to train pretty consistently and stay on top of my nutrition. So excited about all of that, excited to put in the work in the gym and just attack everything with a high degree of intensity going into this building phase. But I'm very glad that I was able to leverage phase 1 and 2 of my protocol to drop those 20 pounds before going into the mountains, because that was some serious work and it kicked my butt. It would have been exponentially harder had I had initial 20 pounds to carry on my frame. So feel very good about that. Was very happy with how the reset protocol worked. And now I'm just in full-blown build phase at the moment. We'll address that dropping to 175 at the beginning of the year if I decide to go that route. But for now, I'm just going to focus on holding the composition steady at about 185. I'll throw some pictures up right now that kind of showcases what I'm looking like at that weight. Again, I'm guesstimating probably 15 to 16% body fat, but at that weight and composition, I still see separation in my quads, still got pretty good degree of definition in my back. Having dropped from 200, I don't have near the just excess fat around my midsection and lower back, so I feel good about just how I feel and look overall. So yeah, I'm excited about it. Everything's going in the right direction. Feel good about the lifts, and we're just going to keep attacking it with a degree of intensity and staying savage. So appreciate y'all tuning in, and we will see you next week.